Hey guys, this is Chesney Hawks here. You are watching My Hammers 11 with the one and only Russ.
Yes, everybody, Russ on the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well, my friends. If you're new around here, where the bloody hell you been? But thanks for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe and all that good stuff. Still deflated from the game against Liverpool, but we'll move on. Anyway, we've got a My Hammers 11 interview where we interview fans from all over the world about why they support West Ham, a bit about West Ham, and they get to pick their My Hammers 11 as well. Today's guest is we've had him trying to get him for a while. Now, I think if I put this guest just on audio only, you would recognise him straight away. But he's currently in Baku, ahead of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, which is available on Sky Sports in Ultra HD. There we go. I've done my bit. It is, and more importantly, he's a massive West Ham fan. It's Mr. Bloody David Croft. How are we doing, Crofty?
Very well, Ross. How are you, mate? Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons. Exactly. We've been through worse. Firstly,
why are you deflated? Come on. No, not firstly. Why are you deflated after last night? What gave you the impression we were going to beat Liverpool last night?
Because I thought we were on this crest of a wave, and it's this blind optimism that every West Ham fan has. It seems, come the end of the season, in the close season, we still think it's like when it comes to the FA Cup. Every year is our year. We haven't won it since 1980, but we still think this year's our year. And we just on this, the Arsenal game and the Bournemouth game and Ghent, and I thought we could do them, and we should have done them. I think yesterday we should have done them.
Don't get me wrong. I'm gutted about last night. I'm gutted about the manner in which we lost last night. But let me take you back to Sunday afternoon when I rang my very good mate Heineken Jeff. Who works for Heineken, and he's called Jeff. But like me, he's a West Ham season ticket holder. Unlike me, he gets to go home and away because he doesn't travel around the world doing Formula One. But and we've got a little WhatsApp group with another friend of ours. And I phoned him up. I said, right, I want to stop you now because I think you're starting to get a bit too optimistic about Wednesday night. Because I know we've scored 10 goals in a week. And I know that we've demolished Bournemouth. We've taken apart Ghent eventually because we weren't very good at times against Ghent.
No, true.
And we've staged the comeback of all comebacks against Arsenal. But this does not a successful avoiding relegation campaign make. And I don't want to say that, but we have been so horribly inconsistent at best at times this year, and just at times so horrible. I didn't want to get carried away. And I think if you look at that Liverpool match last night, it showed the best of West Ham. And there were times when we went forward and we attacked brilliantly, and Paqueta's goal, Paquetá's goal, I don't know how to pronounce it, Lucas's goal, was terrific. The way we then conceded so soon after it was a bit West Ham.
Yep.
The way Bowen scored a brilliant goal and it was chalked off for offside, that's a bit West Ham, sadly, as well. And the way then Liverpool then bossed the rest of the second half, and we single-handedly failed to react to it until it was far too late, is very much how our season has been going. Don't get me started on the penalty appeal that we had that was turned down. Because, look, that's a clear handball. He stopped it twice, and it should be a penalty. Yeah. But we had a similar one against Spurs, didn't we, with Thilo Kehrer, when he was going down and it hit his hand, and that wasn't given. And I'm thinking at the time, I don't understand why it's not given. The rules need changing for me, and we can't bleat about it too much. But the rules do need changing. What I don't understand, especially working in a sport where technology is absolute, the bomb, and where we have our own version of VAR in Formula One, and where an independent or a remote race control can look through so many different camera angles, so many different precedents to an incident to help the stewards and the race director make their mind up quickly and accurately. Why that doesn't translate into every aspect of football? Because I just think get the referee to go over and have a little look at the incident. It takes no longer than it takes to decide whether a goal is offside or not if it's done properly. And then at least you've given the ref the power to say, nah, actually, do you know what? He did stop it. It did stop the ball going through the wings. It really should be a penalty. But the fact is that that didn't happen.
No.
And I could see why David Moyes was incensed at the end. But that's not why we lost. That penalty appeal is not why we lost.
No.
The fact of the matter was we didn't make changes when we needed to. And when we did, we took off. I don't even want to say like for like. You know, we brought Paul for Ben Rama, which, okay, that's a bit like for like. But we brought Ings on for Antonio. Ings is not Antonio, and he's not got the pace that Antonio's got. And if you want to play him as a lone striker, he's not going to make those runs and get the ball as he showed when Alisson got to it first. So I don't understand why, when things weren't going right, we didn't try something different rather than try the same thing with different personnel. That makes no sense. And there are times this season, a lot of what we've done has not made a huge amount of sense to your average season ticket holder like myself in the Bobby Moore upper.
Yeah, and I think it's the definition of madness, isn't it? Doing the same thing over and over again, and it is that, and especially the thing about Ings, the thing that gets me is, you know, Moyes has come out and said he's not a lone striker. He can't play as a lone striker. Then he plays him as a lone striker, and it's like, well, how can you?
Why did we sign him? Why did we? And this is nothing against Danny Ings. I think Danny Ings is a quality footballer, but why did we sign him to play in the role that doesn't suit him? Why did we sign Scamacca as a replacement for Allaire when Allaire didn't work because we were playing him in the wrong way, and Scamacca isn't working because we're playing him in the wrong way? Why are we doing this? And what are the conversations that our coaching staff are having around what is an obvious, you know, an obvious system that isn't working for the players that we've got? Why do we continually try to bash square pegs into round holes, hoping that it'll come good? And it confuses me. It really does, because, you know, I admire our coaching staff. I admire David Moyes. I think you know that they're all well equipped to do a very good job at West Ham, but this season particularly has been poor. And those that know me will know I've been saying this for a while. This has been poor since Manchester City at home on the first day of the Premier League season. I mean, it was poor actually in pre-season. But I left the Man City game thinking we're going to struggle this year because nothing's changed from January to May last season, where European football aside, things weren't going right.
Yeah.
And we can scratch our heads till the cows come home on this one, and it'll probably take a few bottles of the Ribman's excellent hot sauce to try and clear my head on this. But, you know, I don't get it.
No, I understand that totally. And I think the trouble is it's for me it's that round peg square hole type analogy, and it always like he had to revert back to type to start getting some results. So, you know, bringing back the Dad's Army, bringing back Cresswell, you know, and people like that. And it was almost like, I don't know if it was too much of a step change, you know, bringing these players in. You have a big you spend a lot of money, you know, and naturally, I think if he hadn't spent so much money and we had this poor season, I think people may be a little bit more, not sympathetic, but, you know, we've invested quite heavily in the team now. And to be honest, it was like, you know, maybe Emerson was probably the person who'd make the most integration in the side, and because obviously Gerd now. But yeah, it's been a strange, and we're going to have it again in the summer, aren't we? Really, there's 4 or 5 players out of contract at the moment.
But we need to rebuild in the summer, and we need it needs some clear forward thinking.
Yeah,
as West Ham, I want our club to be run in the way that a successful big business runs, with clear guidance from the top as to what is expected, the funds and the wherefore to go and achieve what those expectations are. Those expectations to be communicated to the customer, i.e. you and I, so that we don't think, oh, right, we're going for Champions League football, when, you know, the board's view of it might be, no, we're not. We're happy with being mid-table. That needs to be communicated so that, you know, expectations don't get raised unnecessarily when there's no chance of them of coming to fruition. And look, this is sport. You're not guaranteed anything.
No.
But it just needs a clear guidance from the top, and that's not the football manager. That's right from board level, and I'm not sure we have that at West Ham. I'm not sure that the funds and just the ability to create those expectations are always put in place. And look, I don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes. I'm just trying to look at it from a very objective standpoint.
Sure.
But then the manager and the coaching staff and need to identify who the people are that can bring the expectations that have been handed down, and they need to work, on who are the best players in the positions they need, not who are just the best players that are available and will put them into a position. It's like what's the film Moneyball? But the baseball thing with
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, where they don't bring in all the best players, but they bring in the best people to work together. That's what we haven't had now for I think about a season and a half. There are glimpses of it, and there have been times in the last 3 matches or 4 matches where we've gone hunting impacts and it's been really good and really impressive. But there are other times when it's just looked disjointed. Look at how Declan has played for us compared to playing for England this year. It's almost like he's a different player. And we know he's not a different player. And we know he lacks no passion and heart and soul for West Ham. But he turns around, he looks up, and there's no one there for him because no one's making the runs. Whereas at England, of course, they're making the runs for him. So I just think we need to go back a little bit and say, right, what are the expectations? How do we do it? And who are the people that are going to achieve that? Now, that may or may not be David Moyes. And I'm not here to say David Moyes has got to go, because he has brought us a huge amount of hope and a fair degree of success as well. But I go back not to last January, but to the January before, where we did nothing in the transfer window, despite the fact that we desperately needed bodies and defensive bodies to help us through what we knew was going to be a very key and pivotal end to the season. What was on Rob Newman's list? What players were on Rob Newman's list on December the 31st that we then didn't go and buy for whatever reason once the transfer window opened on January the 1st? And I don't know if Rob watches or listens to this podcast, but Rob, I'd love to see that list. I really would, because what transpired was nothing, and what transpired was a squad that were performing brilliantly as a squad, but who completely ran out of steam. And actually, we sacrificed our greatest opportunity ever to A, get into the Champions League through the Premier League, and B, get into the Champions League through the Europa League. We were 2 matches away from the Champions League, but we ran out of steam in Europe. And that was just that was just so, I don't want to use the word unforgivable, because it's not unforgivable. You can forgive a lot in this world, but to a West Ham fan since the age of 7, that was unforgivable. We knew that was a chance, and we didn't go for it. Why?
It's a strange thing. I mean, thinking about it, you're totally right. Two bites of the cherry as well. It's like, and now, I mean, obviously, now we're sort of hopefully we might take a European trophy, be it the Mickey Mouse one according to Spurs. But
it's a very good trophy to win. It's not Mickey Mouse. We've had to go and play some tough games along the way. Whoever it is, we're going to get in the final. And I have now I've got that optimism. This is what Heineken.
That's the trouble.
It gives me optimism.
It gives you optimism. That's the trouble with West Ham. They just do, and it's like, as you said, it's this blind optimism that we've always had. And people call me delusional, but we're all delusional to be West Ham fans, because, as you said, you're a season ticket holder. You've been supporting them since you were age of 7, and it's like same as me. I've supported them since I was from birth. We've won F all in my lifetime, apart from the Intertoto Cup, which 3 people won, 3 separate teams, which doesn't really count. So
that puts us in a very exclusive club, and we'll hold on to that.
Exactly. And I mean, we invent the Betway Cup, and we don't even win that. We don't even win our own cup, every season. So what can we do? But no, it's a frustrating thing. And I think, as you said, this season, hope, I mean, I'm not in, I don't think we'll be in a relegation dogfight come the end of May, but I think, well, we'll see. We don't know West Ham, Crofty. I think you don't know, do you?
I don't want to go down the deflation route again here because you've got me going now. It doesn't take much. Do you know? It's really interesting. I love my job and I adore Formula One and I commentating on F1 an absolute dream of mine, and to be able to do my dream job week in week out, I consider myself one of the luckiest people on the planet. And I try very hard, not to have any bias and not to be too partisan. Yeah, although obviously the British drivers we do
Naturally.
feature, because our audience at Sky, the majority are rooting for Lewis or for George or for Lando Norris, and that's nothing against the Formula One fans in the UK and Ireland. They're a very knowledgeable, passionate bunch, and that they will all choose their hero depending on a whole variety of things, not just where they come from. But I try so hard not to let my emotions run away with me. But when I get talking about West Ham,
it's
to West Ham
therapy.
Honestly, my emotions are just everywhere. I start off thinking, right, okay, today's the day. I'm going to be really serious. I'm not going to be shouting anything in the first 20 seconds. No, it just goes out the window completely. I am a proper fan who it sometimes makes no sense whatsoever, but will always support the team. And I don't know why I support West Ham. I've been supporting them since I was 7. I actually can't remember why, how, the day that I started supporting West Ham. But I grew up in Stevenage, and in 1977, when I was 7, Stevenage had no football team. The Stevenage Borough came way later on, and the football ground was just this old relic and dilapidated ground. And all my mates supported Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, Man United. Nottingham Forest did quite well at that time as well. So they were all supporting anything, and I don't know why I chose West Ham, but I did. And I firmly believe that you stick to the team you choose. You don't swap teams. And there has never been a part of me that has ever wanted to swap away from West Ham. And I say this to my fiance, who has obviously taken on the mantle of supportive West Ham fan ever since we got together, that one of the joys of supporting West Ham is that wherever you go in the world, you will meet a West Ham fan. And you will bump into a West Ham fan without even thinking about it. And whenever we've gone away on holiday, this has always come true. So we took a holiday in January, and I was just relaxing in the pool, and this guy came over and said, "All right, Crofty, how are you?" I said, "Oh, yeah, not bad." He said, "I'm a big F1 fan, Oh, no, thanks ever so much." And we got talking about F1, and he said, "You're a hammer, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, me too. I'm mates with Mark Noble." I went, "Oh, really? Oh, excellent." And Mark is I love Mark Noble. He's such a terrific guy, and he came out to Monza last year. And we got him a bit of garage access and tickets for the paddock with his mates, and I had a brilliant weekend with him as well. And I'll tell you a little story about why Mark Noble is the way he is, and why he has been such a great captain for West Ham over the years. I phoned him up on a Sunday morning before he got to the track. I said, "Mate," "I've managed to get you a grid pass for the race. So if you want to go on the grid before the start of the race, you can. But I can only get one. I'm really sorry. They just haven't got the numbers. So it's entirely your choice. I know you're here with a couple of mates, but there's a grid pass if you want it." He went, "Crofty, that's terrific. That's really lovely of you. But if you can't do the 3, then I'll turn it down, because I'm here with my mates and I don't want to leave them high and dry and hanging, because we're here together to have a weekend together." At which point you then get why people go into battle with Mark Noble, and do what he says. And it's that ethos that has made him such a brilliant captain for West Ham over the years. He is not the best player we've ever had. He knows that.
Yeah.
But you could argue he is right up there as our best captain. And has led a team, that at times has overachieved and overachieved because he's instilled a sense of belief and confidence into that team as well. And I think Declan has realised there's more to being a captain than just putting on the armband and leading the team on the pitch. It's what you do off the pitch as well.
Definitely. I mean, it's so true. I think that's also probably been a slight, a big reason why maybe our slight, our downfall in form this season is because the sort of dressing room sort of general is not there in terms of Nobes, in terms of Dawes as well. They're two big sort of big pro, and it takes time. You can be a club. Deck's been the team captain, who relatively success as well. But it's different being a club captain and a club captain who hasn't. The team aren't performing well. So look, it's
But
Deck
is also young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he is a magnificent player, but he's young for a captain. And he hasn't got that life experience, that players have when they reach their early 30s, for instance.
Yeah,
it's very much, we talk about Max Verstappen a lot in Formula One, obviously, because he's won 16 of the last 22 races,
exactly.
going into the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And we expect a lot from Max because he's been in Formula One for so long, but we forget sometimes how young he was when he came into Formula One. He's the youngest point scorer, for heaven's sake. He's the youngest race winner. Max has achieved so much so early, and sometimes we'll say the right thing and sometimes we'll say the wrong thing, and he's criticized in certain fractions of the media and amongst the fans for what he says, but he's learning life whilst he's also learning, Formula One. For the record, every interaction I've ever had with Max Verstappen has always been a good one, and I've had some brilliant chats with him over the years, and I think he's a sensational human being. When you get him away from the noise of the paddock, as it were, you get to know the real Max Verstappen, and the real Max Verstappen is a guy who loves going racing, loves going on his sim at home when he's not racing. He loves spending time with his family, and I had a brilliant chat with Max in, where were we? In Australia. That's it.
Sometimes it's only been a few. It's only a few this season. So, yeah.
On the Saturday night, and I said, "Tell me about you and your dad when you go and hire a racetrack for the afternoon." I'd take my kids out for a kick around the park. You go and get a Porsche and drive around a racetrack. He said, it's just one of the things. Dad and I love racing, and we love going racing together, and it's such a special time when we can just muck around like kids on a racetrack, driving Porsches for the fun of it. And you get a chance to see and to hear the real drivers and who they are, not just their public persona. And it's one of the lovely things about my job and my profile. It allows me sometimes to meet my absolute heroes in sport away from F1, some of which of course are West Ham players over the years. And I've got to meet quite a few of the people that I've cheered on from the terraces, and
it's a bizarre thing, isn't it? I think for obviously we've been doing this whole thing for a couple of years now, and we've had 100 ex-players on probably, and it's a bizarre thing when you sort of I do the job at West Ham as well. When you bump into them, and they go, "Hello, Russ, you all right?" And I still find it bizarre when Keith Robson sits next to me.
Yeah, the night that I hosted the West Ham Awards dinner, the Dimitri Payet year when he won everything. Ray Stewart came up to me afterwards and introduced himself and said, "Oh, Crofty, I just want to say, mate, on a Sunday, I always listen. I can't do the Ray Stewart accent. I always listen, and I love F1. Oh, it's brilliant." I just went, "You're Ray Stewart?"
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I said, "Matt, you are such a hero of mine," and he was one of the first players that I really kind of latched onto, because I one of my early memories as a West Ham fan. It took me a few years to get down to the bowling, because we lived in Stevenage. We didn't live in the UK.
Stevenage, yeah.
Exactly. So went to a few away matches. All my family are Sheffield United fans, by the way. So I totally went against the grain, and that caused a little bit of trouble over the years. My uncle has still not forgiven me for that relegation season, and has also not forgiven me for the fact that I keep pointing out that Sheffield United won 3 of their last 13 matches, and one of those was against West Ham, so it wasn't Carlos Tevez' fault either way. So 1981 League Cup final. Somehow My uncle, the same uncle who now gives me grief for the fact United went down and we stayed up, managed to get 2 tickets for the League Cup final. Now, he was treasurer or something of a local league team in Sheffield, and they had this ballot for a pair of tickets, and somehow we managed to win. I don't know how. And my dad took me. And so we went to Wembley, and I'm thinking, this is brilliant. West Ham fan, this is brilliant. We were in the FA Cup final last year. We're in the League Cup final this year. I've chosen the right team here. You know, this is the team to support for success. We obviously know the end of that story and the continuation. So we got to the game, and turns out the tickets are at the Liverpool end. Now we're in the seats. If you remember, Wembley used to be like terracing at the end and then seats in the middle. We were right towards the terracing. And those that remember that match, and Russ, you don't look old enough to remember that match. Yes,
I don't think I was born in September 1981. So yeah.
So the match had taken place by that stage. So those that remember it, it was a fairly even match until the extra time period when Liverpool scored, and it was Alan or Ray Kennedy. I can't quite remember which of the Kennedys it was. Got the goal, but Sammy Lee was playing for Liverpool and was lying in an offside position in front of Phil Parkes and got up just as the shot was coming in. You know, it was like, you know, for once he wasn't putting out the cones. He was actually just there playing a match, and Sam Allardyce had nothing to do with it. And Clive Thomas gave the goal, and we're like, no, it's offside, it's offside. Wasn't. No VAR in those days. And of course, I'm now with my dad, right, at the Liverpool end, which is going absolutely potty because there's only about 5 minutes to go. And they're all singing "We Shall Not Be Moved" and, you know, "Iadio" and all that malarkey. And my dad put his arm around me and went, "Son, don't worry, we'll be okay." Which was interesting.
We'll be okay. Wow.
Yeah, see, interesting that, you know, as a father, he put, you know, me first rather than his footballing loyalties. And, you know, I'll never forget what my dad did at that stage, and I've tried to do the same, you know, with my kids. You know, one of whom was a diehard Hammer. Ava, my stepdaughter, who is becoming a West Ham fan. We know we're working on it, and she loves it. And James, who's now a Liverpool fan, who's 14, he's decided to do what I did and go against the family tradition. Yeah? And was at the game last night, you know, with my fiance, and you know, we allow him to give it a bit of that when Liverpool score, but not too much.
Not too much.
So either way, so he's put his arm around me, and I believe him. You know, I believe that everything is now going to be okay because my dad says it is. And as we know, we went up the other end, we had a shot, and it was it Terry McDermott, wasn't it? Handled on the line, tipped it over the bar. We get a penalty, and I'm thinking, I've never experienced anything like this before. This is this is quite something. It's like I remember. You remember the Everton FA Cup match when we went to penalties and it got down to the 2 goalkeepers.
And gloves off moment. Yeah,
gloves off moment. Just before the gloves off moment, my son Daniel, who's 16 this year, so he was quite a bit younger then. He turned to me and Dad, "I can't watch this, Dad. I can't watch it. This is just too tense. I'm not enjoying this." I went, "You will be in a minute. Don't you worry. Yeah. This gorgeous Spaniard is going to go and put the ball right into the top corner or whatever." So I'm like, I've nothing to equip me, you know, for this whatsoever. And then Ray Stewart stepped up, and at that moment, even as a youngster, right, even without the aid of the internet, to tell us how all the stats and the facts and the figures, I knew we were in safe hands. And he absolutely buried that penalty. And from that moment onwards, I've loved Ray Stewart for the feeling of euphoria and jubilation that he gave me by scoring that penalty. Then, of course, we lost the replay in a very typical West Ham fashion. You know, we went to Villa Park and we lost the replay 2-1, I think it was.
Standard.
But you know, that one of my earliest memories of going, it might actually have been the first time I saw West Ham live as well.
Wow.
To get these tickets, but Ray Stewart, what a hero he was.
Yeah, actually, I've got a very similar story. So, I think my first game would have been early 90s. I think I was a glory hunter. So I think it was the 92-3 season. We went up into the Premier League. I think it was my first game, and we played Oxford United. And the same thing with you and your dad. It's me and my granddad. And I think Oxford United. I got the hat. got the scarf, went to Erkins to get a burger, all that type of stuff, and we was in the East Stand, so it was in the shit seats, and literally I think Oxford United scored in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and then
that really happens.
my granddad turned to me and went, "Get used to this. You got a lifetime of this." And I didn't believe him. But I think we ended up winning 5-3, and I think Dixie scored a couple. And I saw when I interviewed Julian for the first time, I said, "You scored the first ever goal I saw." And I said 5-3. Went, "Actually, I scored 2 that game, Russ." I said, "Yeah, I know you scored 2, but the first one." Yeah. I love it.
Listen, there are so many memories down the years, but I go back to what I was saying. Wherever I go in the world, I meet a West Ham fan somewhere without even expecting it, and it's a joy. It's something about being a West Ham fan. We just like the fact that our team are not always going to give us, championship after championship, trophy after trophy, but those golden moments when it all comes right, that are a bit few and far between, I think, for our liking.
Very true.
Do make things worthwhile. I'll go back to, and some of these players will all feature in my West Ham 11, but I'll go back to the League Cup match that we played at Upton Park in circa 86, 87, when we were bottom of the first division and Liverpool were top. And that night that Paul Ince got carried off on the shoulders of the fans because we beat them 4-1. And I've never seen a game like it. Elton Wellesby did the highlights. I used to go with a season ticket holder. He used to take us when I was a bit younger, and that was the only reason I was allowed to go to Upton Park when I was 16, because there was a responsible adult that was taking. He'd go off to his seats, and I'd go off to the South Bank. But I was in the North Bank that night, and I remember we were 3-1 up, and it's still a bit tense when you're 3-1 up, even though we're playing that well. And then the inspiration for Dimitri Payet stepped up in the form of Tony Gale, who curled in this free kick from about 25 yards, the likes of which I'd never seen before, and I don't even think Tony Gale had ever seen that before. Quite why he was allowed to do it, I still can't fathom, but it was one of the greatest free kicks I'd ever seen. and Upton Park just went. There was bedlam, proper limbs for that one. I must admit. But those are the nights we cling on to, and we love and we adore, and we'll never forget.
And you get them every season or 1 or 2 seasons. There's one of those nights. I think obviously last year with Sevilla, and that was one of them we'll probably talk about for a long time. And I think even this year, even the Arsenal game coming back from 2-0 down, there's always one, and that's what I was thinking. Like when we played Arsenal, is like, we turn up 1 or 2 games for no rhyme or reason, and but you don't know when those 2 games are going to happen, so you have to watch all the games because you never know.
That's why you have to have a season ticket. Absolutely.
Yeah. I find it hilarious. I love it. Absolutely love it. And as you said, it's like there's certain things. It's like I think I remember the Arsenal game. I think when Deck scored his first goal, and just twatted it in, and it's bizarre. But that's it. You're totally right. It's like it's so as you said. I think that's why you have this sort of if you meet another West Ham fan, it's almost you have this shared misery and shared jubilation. So that's why. I was the same as you.
Comfort can be found in misery. It really can.
Exactly.
I don't disagree with you on that one at all. Honestly, most of the messages on the We Are Massive WhatsApp group that we have, which I'll show you if I can find it. I'll show you the avatar. It's one of my favorite avatars at all that I've come up with, managed to find. Here we go. So this is the We Are. There we go. We Are Massive avatar, and that is Moisey from back in the day.
It was back in the day.
Now we also think that looks a little bit. He looks a little bit like Simon Lazenby, our presenter in Formula One, and we do give Lasers a bit of ribbing that he's the spitting image of David Moyes.
Oh, bless him.
To be fair,
but we was on holiday in January. We was on holiday in December. I was in Disneyland. We was in Orlando for Christmas, and literally I was walking down through our hotel, and there's a guy playing table tennis, and I heard this bat just go like that. Russ, it's Russ, it's Russ, and I have no idea. Bless, it was a guy called Christian. He was a really sweet guy, but it was like my wife finds it hilarious. She finds it hilarious. Like on Saturday, I was getting my eyes tested, and I was, had all the things on, and this bloke walked past the open door. He stopped. He went, "Stop playing Sweet Caroline, mate," and then walked off.
So you do the stuff outside the ground then on match days?
No, inside.
Oh,
So,
inside now.
So we've been doing it for since the Rio stand.
Oh, right.
So that was 2001, 2. I think it's my 22nd year this year. How many years have you been doing Formula One now?
So I've been doing Formula One since 2006.
Wow.
Bahrain 2006 was my first F1 race. And since that time, I think I've amassed something like 330 commentaries just on the Grand Prix itself.
Wow.
And I've missed one in 2007, Nürburgring, the European Grand Prix, when Daniel, my eldest, was born. So that was the only one I've missed. Murray Walker got to stand in for us, which was brilliant. I was working for 5 Live at the time, and they phoned me up. They said, "Look, we've got an idea. We were going to ask Murray if he fancied a return and standing in for you." I went, "Yep, done. Superb. Yeah, make it happen." And Murray came back and he did it, and was an utter joy to listen to. Murray, I worked with occasionally because he'd retired by the time I started commentating, but got to know really well. And became firm friends with. He was the first person that I phoned up when I could tell people I'd got the Sky job.
Yeah,
I just felt he deserved it. To be fair, he was so full of support and praise when I first started, and guidance and help. And it was just not just the greatest commentator, but one of the greatest human beings that you could ever wish to spend time with as well. He just he was a joy. He really was to get to know. We miss him dearly in Formula One. Martin Brundle and myself started together in 2012 for Sky. Martin is a fan, albeit not quite as passionate as me on that one. But he will join in with a little fist bump when halfway through a commentary I'll show him the score from whatever match.
Yeah, because at the moment, obviously because we're on Sundays quite a lot, and that's your busy day, isn't it? So it's
well, it is. They don't always clash. I think this weekend, we got a 12:30 kickoff against Palace. I actually think by the time we go on air for the sprint commentary, we'll have just finished at Palace. I mean, there have been dangerous times in the Sky commentary box. I remember a Mexican Grand Prix a few years ago. It was a Friday practice session, and there was a Friday night football. It was West Ham Brighton, so you know where this is going.
Yeah,
and we're 3-0 down after half an hour. At which point, I may or may not have picked up a water bottle and flung it against the wall of the commentary box because I wasn't overly happy. It missed Paul DeResta by about that much. He's like, he ducked out of the way. What's up with you? And then he'll get on the talkback button while I'm talking, and he'll be like, "I see West Ham are losing again." Then, and he'll start taking the big on that one. But we, and there have been times when we've scored a goal, and the messages flash through on my phone, or occasionally our director in the gallery will say, "Yeah, West Ham are 1 up, Crofty. Just thought you better know." And I start dancing around. There were times when I start dancing around the commentary box to celebrate the goal, whilst maintaining a level of my voice that would hide anything that I'm doing. And you'd only know about it because Karoon, Paul, or Ant or pick us up on that one and say, "You sound quite happy there, Crofty. Anything going on?" But Martin came down to Upton Park. We had a night at Upton Park together. We've been to see a match, and he kind of follows them on. As far as I'm aware, there are no other West Ham fans amongst the drivers or the team principals. I had a bad moment in Miami last year when we went a goal down against Eintracht Frankfurt on the Thursday. So we were there for the media day, and I have to say I was sat in the office watching the match rather than actually going and talking to F1 drivers at that time. And we went a goal down. and I'm expecting, the ribbing from the Sky team. I then get a message, WhatsApp message on my phone from Mike Crack, the Aston Martin team principal, going, oh, I see Frankfurt have scored. Then this could be bad news for you guys. And it's like, well, when did you feel that you needed to join in?
They'll jump on the bandwagon, isn't it?
And then the match finished. I went for a run around the track because first time we were in Miami, I thought I'd go for a run just to, get the lie of the land, as it were. First person I come across is Sebastian Vettel, who is an Eintracht Frankfurt fan. I'm thinking that there's something up there is just wanting to upset me today on this one. So I stopped and shook hands with Seb and wished him well for the final. That was our chance, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. And you're back to Miami next week, isn't it? Next week's Miami.
Can't wait, to be fair. Miami's good. It's a good place to have a Grand Prix. A few teething problems last year, but they'll overcome that. And like you said earlier, 5 races in 6 weeks. So it's I don't think I'll be able to get now down to the London Stadium for the rest of this season. The way the diary is looking, there's one night. There's the home leg of the semi-final. But the trouble I've got with this, right, is that things get booked up a long way in advance.
Yeah.
So last year, before the British Grand Prix, I hosted the British Grand Prix ball, and they said, would you do something, for charity? And we're trying to raise some charity money. We can get a round of golf, auction it off. Would you do that? Play a round of golf with you? I said, yeah, no worries. I'm no great strokes at golf at all, but I'll do that. Not a problem. So we've arranged it for the 11th of May, which is the Thursday night home leg. Someone's paid $9,000 to charity to play golf with me. I can't phone up and go, look, really sorry, but we're in a semi-final. Mind if we just did it at another date? Because the first thing that will come back is, yeah, but do you really want to go? You were 1-0 down after 30 seconds the last time you played a European semi-final. Do you need that? Do you need that aggravation in your life? So what I'm going to have to do, and the golf, by the way, includes dinner. So that's why it goes on into the evening. So dinner will finish at 7:00 sharp, and I'll be at home in front of the TV watching the match from there, which is a real shame because I as far as my football's concerned, I do like to watch it live.
Yeah.
I went to Newcastle this year. Heineken Jeff once again phoned me up. I've got a spare ticket. Do you want to come to Newcastle? I'm like, mate, I've got 1 week off now. And that's it before the season starts. And the other half did actually think that we could do a few things together. He went, 4th of Feb, see what you can do. I said, oh, that could be good. I said, 4th of Feb, I'll get back to you. So I phoned up my other half. I said, it's your dad's birthday, isn't it, on the 4th of Feb? She went, yeah. I said, I've got a ticket for West Ham Newcastle at Newcastle. She went, and? I said, well, we could drop in at your dad's on the way because he's like 3 miles from Scotch Corner, and we're driving up to Newcastle. So we're kind of on the way to your dad's, and you go and see him on your birthday if you fancy.
Pick you up on the way back,
and pick you up on the way back. That's exactly what happened. The stars aligned on that one.
Indeed.
And that was one of our better performances.
Yeah.
After the first 10 minutes this season.
Yes, very true. Speaking of Newcastle, I mean, I brought my daughter along to the first game, which was 2 weeks ago, the Newcastle game, with my wife.
That's bad. All right,
yes.
I'll take your. I took my daughter along, and I'll raise you. Yeah. I was in Perth, Australia, and I got up at 3 a.m. to watch that.
Oh.
Someone gave me a login so I could watch it on Australian TV. So yeah, that was well worth 2 hours of my life at 3 a.m.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Doing this thing, we do the watch-alongs, and we have people all over the world as well. It's just I think thinking, as you said, there'll be a lot of people who do get up at 3 o'clock all the time to watch the games, and it's like, fucking hell, seriously. The best one I like are the guys from. It is dedication. The best one I know is the fan groups, the Fresno Irons at the West Coast in the States, because what they do is so if they're playing Chelsea, they'll go to the Chelsea pub. So it'll be like the away leg stuff. Fair play, brilliant.
Love it.
I think Jim Stanton.
Do you want a West Ham 11? Do you want a West Ham
11? Yeah. Come on, then. Let's do West Ham 11. Yeah, forgot about that.
Because we've been rabbiting on for a while. I put some thought into this. I've got some subs, right? Because you need some subs, right?
Yeah, true.
So these are the substitutes, right?
Okay.
I couldn't leave out Alvin Martin
Got nowhere we don't
in the
get.
squad.
Yep.
First person I ever asked for an autograph. He was doing like some church fete in Stevenage, and I've no idea why he was doing a church fete in Stevenage.
He lives in
had
church.
Exactly. So look, imagine, all right? So imagine being presented with a piece of paper like that, but half the size. Right? I'll tell you what, you don't have to imagine it. I'll fold it up.
Oh,
so I had this piece of paper, and I said, "Can you just cite your name on it, please?" This was on my bedroom wall for about 10 years. The signature had faded by the time that I'd finally took it down. But Alvin Martin, he was a big thing. And Phil Parks, loved Phil Parks, still love Phil Parks. What a goalkeeper he was.
Lovely.
And wasn't it nice that West Ham at some stage had the world's most expensive goalkeeper playing for us?
Exactly.
You know, there's not many claims to fame.
Twice, because we had it with Bobby Ferguson as well, if I remember. Like in the 60s, he was the most expensive goalkeeper in the world. So yeah.
Tony Cottee. I had a difficult choice to make. Tony Cottee made the subs bench. We'll see why in a minute.
Oh, okay. I think
PC was a legend. He was an absolute legend.
Yeah.
Should never have gone to Everton, but he was a legend.
He was.
Alan Devonshire, who gets into the squad for the most persistent attempt at trying to grow a moustache during a professional football career. You know, I think it took him 20 years to grow a moustache.
I mean, that was one in his hey, that was before the injury, wasn't it? He still couldn't get it. Bless him.
There you go. Alan Devonshire, what a brilliantly creative, wonderful midfielder that man was. And what a goal he scored, by the way, against Everton in that FA Cup semi-final in 1980. We forget, how good that goal was. We always ask the question, why was Frank Lampard Sr. in the box with that header at the time? Because he really shouldn't have been anywhere near the place. But we forget Devonshire's part in that one. Scott Parker. Now, Scott Parker, there was another 50-50 on this one.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the one who got the nod is a better footballer, but he had to go in for obvious reasons. But Scott Parker, I loved watching Scott Parker play. He was one of those players. When he came to West Ham, it was like, we've signed Scott Parker.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. It's just one of those. It's like when we signed Dean Ashton.
Yes.
When we signed Stuart Robson, and Stuart Robson, Dean Ashton, players that sadly both picked up, really serious injuries, but they were just brilliant signings at the time.
Yeah.
And if we could have had 10 others, well, life would have been different.
Definitely.
Vladimir Soufal, who I love. I adore watching Vladimir Soufal. To replace Pablo Zabaleta,
Yeah, good point.
As a defender, and for us not to notice the difference in that tough tackling defender that we've lost speaks volumes for Vladimir Soufal, who I think I think his return to full fitness has coincided with our upturn in form a little bit as well.
Yeah, and his combination with Bowen, they just work. Yeah, they've always worked well as a team.
There are areas of his game he still needs to work on, but I just think our central defensive pairings are better and more settled when Vladimir Soufal's playing.
Agreed. Yeah.
Talking of central defenders, Craig Dawson. Oh. Craig Dawson has to go on an all-time West Ham 11 just because nobody quite did it like Craig Dawson with such regularity, that you didn't expect. He was arguably should have been our leading goal scorer for about 3 seasons on the trot. And whoever came up with a Ballon Dawson tag is just
amazing.
Sensational.
Amazing.
But I want players like Craig Dawson playing for the team. And I totally understood why he wanted to leave as well. And I have nothing against that decision. He put family first.
And he's doing it at Wolves now. You can see Wolves, their fans love him.
Absolutely.
Love him.
And he gave it everything, match after match. Joe Cole. Watching Joe Cole was, as a young man, an utter joy.
Amazing.
Such a gifted player. In the same vein as Stuart Slater. Yeah. And I love Stuart Slater as well.
Love him.
I went to Celtic once and he was playing for Celtic and he was just as good playing for them. And I'm saying, why did you ever leave? Teddy Sheringham and Ian Wright, you have to put in because they wouldn't it have been great to have got Teddy Sheringham and Ian Wright 10 years before we got
That's the trouble. We've always bookended players. Very rarely do we get them in their pomp. Pyatt probably in his pomp. That was it. But it's usually their beginning or the end of their careers. And Teddy and Ian, both the same thing. Yeah.
Superb. Michael Carrick, who, if David Moyes were to go, and I've been saying this for a while, because every time you have the conversation about, well, is it time to replace the manager? You know, the lazy question as a follow-up is, well, who would you have in their place? And it's a lazy question because sometimes it's an irrelevant question when, you know, like Graham Potter at Chelsea, for instance, you know, they've lost the dressing room. Like Frank Lampard, he can't find the dressing room, it seems. But Michael Carrick, to me, just fits really well, you know?
Yeah.
Sort our midfield out. I think it is an attacking-minded manager, is doing brilliantly at Middlesbrough, and knows West Ham, and is ex-West Ham, and I think that helps a lot with the manager. And I'm not for one moment saying David Moyes should go. That is not the fans. It's not the fans' job to say a manager should go. And whoever brought the Moyes out flag, you know, the other day, leave that is not helpful at this moment. We can all have our moans and our gripes, you know, but don't start demanding that a manager should go on that one. It's just managers deserve more respect for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Point out where you think things could be improved. That is our job as fans. We pay our money. We have a right to do all that, and we covered that in the first 93 minutes of this podcast.
Indeed.
And Carlos Tevez makes the bench. You know,
bless him. It was funny when he was on the pitch. He came on and did an interview with Chris. A few games was last season. I think he came on, and I think they said, right, he doesn't speak any English. He still doesn't speak any English, but he learned "Come on, you irons," you know, which is the standard thing. Which West Ham clips will probably nick him. Come on, you irons.
I once got a ticket to go to the Nou Camp to see Barcelona and Man United in a quarter-final, I think it was, of the Champions League, while we were out in Spain for the Grand Prix, and Tevez was playing for Man United, and when he got substituted, I was the one person in the lower tier of the main stand who stood up and applauded him as he went off, and I'm like, no, I'm going to make this count, because I don't care that he's playing for Man United. I still adore him. I still love him. In fact, so when was this? This would have been 2007, I think. Last day of the season, 2007, am I right? When Tevez scored and we beat Man U 1-0.
Yeah.
I was interviewing Takuma Sato, who was driving for Super Aguri. And we're in the Super Aguri motorhome, and the TV was on with the video printer on Sky's soccer special.
Yeah.
Guys were doing it, because last day of the Premier League season. And I'm in the middle of asking Takuma Sato a question. It wasn't going out live. It was being recorded. When it flashes up, Man United 0, West Ham 1, Carlos Tevez. When I'm saying, Takuma, so a difficult day for you. Oh, come on, get in, son! And I just went into full West Ham mode. And Takuma's like, what are you on, Crofty? What's going on here? So, sorry. Carlos Tevez has just scored.
Anyway, back to the game. Yeah,
I wouldn't normally do this, but can we start again? Because this is quite a special thing. So anyway, there's my substitutes.
Wow,
right?
So that's a hell of a bench already, mate.
Yeah, and so these are all players I've seen play.
Yeah,
and it is a bit of a split, because it's players I saw at the start when I first started going, and players I'm kind of seeing now a little bit. So in goal, Ludek McCloskey.
Yeah.
Now we have been blessed with brilliant. I love the fact you've got all these pictures here, because you don't know what my 11
Crofty,
is.
Don't worry. They say men can't multitask.
You can. This is good. Now, the mere fact we still sing the song is how much we regard Ludek.
Even on Wednesday at the Emirates, in the under 18s FA Youth Cup, we were singing Ludek McCloskey song.
Brilliant. And it is a great song. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I absolutely love it. And there are times I'll sit in the Sky Sports office just for the hell of it, while we're all working away, of a morning. And my name is Ludek McCloskey. And I just come out with it because it's a brilliant song. But he was a fine keeper.
Yeah.
I'd never even heard of Banik Ostrava before we signed him. And he came in and we're like, he's good. He's good. This lad, he's good. And he was everything we loved about our players at that time. He gave it everything. That performance against Man U that time when we denied Man United the chance to win the title, because he made about 78 saves during the course of the second half alone. What a performance! And I could have chosen a lot of other keepers, and it would have been just as good a choice. But Ludek is the one. He is always my number one for West Ham.
Love it.
Ray Stewart, as discussed, proper
Tonka.
hero,
Yeah, got to be
proper
Tonka.
proper penalty taker, and a blooming good fullback,
And a lovely bloke as well. And a
oh,
lovely
yes.
bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. And loves his F1. So therefore we have to get him in.
We have to get him in. Yeah.
So on the other side, fullback, Julian Dix.
Yeah.
Now, Julian Dix got a bad rap, mainly because David Mellor didn't like him for whatever reason and decided he'd start every 606 with a pop about Julian Dix. But I remember Julian Dix's debut for West Ham. I was there. It was Sheffield Wednesday away. And I was on the standing at the Leppings Lane end, and we're like, "Who's this Julian Dix bloke? We're going to spend a lot of money on him, 300,000." And then he got the ball on the edge of the area, our area, and he dribbled and he ran and he kept on running and he kept on running. We're like, where's he going? Where's he going? Where's he going? And he unleashed this shot from about 35 yards that nearly broke the crossbar. I mean, it didn't go in. This is West Ham we're talking about. Miracles don't happen. But it unleashed this shot. And suddenly, I like this guy. He's good as Julian Dix. He can stay around a bit. And once again, he gave everything for the cause.
Yeah,
love Julian Dix. Just magnificent for us. And a player who just kind of fitted the West Ham mold.
Yeah, just worked, didn't it?
Yeah, and the sight of the opposition's winger being deposited into the front row of the chicken run in the second half, absolutely fine. I'd never had a problem with that. I don't know why David Mellor did.
Exactly.
Tony Gale. So for that free kick alone, but Tony Gale, I could have chosen Billy Bonds, but I didn't really see Billy Bonds play that much, to be fair. And I should maybe have chosen Billy Bonds, but Tony Gale I saw more. Gailey, what a servant for the club. And as I said, the inspiration for Dimitri Payet's free kicks. We know that.
We know it.
Rio Ferdinand.
Rio.
It was the start, wasn't it, of the demise of West Ham?
It was when
we sold him. And could we have turned down the money? Probably not. Should we have turned down the money as a fan? Yes. But he went, and then others followed. And if they'd have just stayed, that Youth Cup winning side, if they'd have just stayed together, what might have been? But Rio, what a centre half he was.
Great player, wasn't he? Great player. And as I said, you're totally right. That sort of that golden generation, isn't it? I mean, we had I remember we had H on a while ago, and he was saying, look, we'd have probably won the Premier League if we'd kept them all. And you could probably possibly, maybe 5 years down the line. But
how do you turn down that record transfer?
You couldn't.
At the time. You just can't.
And if it wasn't for Rio, they wouldn't have built the new stand, and I wouldn't have got my job at West Ham. So, thank you, Mr. Ferdinand.
Swings and roundabouts. Declan Rice. We have to have Declan Rice in there.
Yeah.
And whatever happens with Declan this season, and I think we're all resigned to the fact that he probably is going. Thank you, Declan, for everything you've done.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a captain that we admire and a leader on the pitch, even when you're not the captain. Even when he wasn't the captain, he was still leading.
Yeah.
Inspirational. The one player I've seen playing for West Ham who never looks hurried on the ball. Always looks like he's got an option and an answer and an alternative. And sometimes with our midfield, that is the work of a genius, quite frankly. He has something that the rest of us don't. And his vision, his anticipation, it is second to none. Like I said, I went to the Newcastle game, and I left St James's Park, and I thought to myself, do you know, if Newcastle had Declan Rice, then they probably win a Premier League.
Yeah.
And I think Newcastle need a Declan Rice in there, or need Declan Rice in there. Now I hope he doesn't go. I think Arsenal are interested, and I think they're the two teams that if he is going to go, he should go to. I don't think at Man City you'll get the games that he deserves. No. I don't think at Chelsea it's worth
not
it.
The moment, no.
Liverpool, it's not right for him either. And after that, you think, where, I think it's a shame we have not been able to give Declan what he needs in his career and what he's looking for. But if he stayed on for an extra year, then great. We've had an extra year with Declan Rice.
Yeah. Do you know what? As every week goes past, I'm thinking a little bit more. Again, it's West Ham blind optimism as well. It's thinking, if you lifted a cup, it'd be the last one since Billy Bonds. And
Yeah, but the trouble is, we lift a cup and we go into the Europa League. We don't go into the Champions League, and he
it's
should
true.
be playing
Yeah.
the Champions League. And you know what? If you're a Real Madrid, then you'd look at Declan Rice as well.
Well, that's who I think realistically would probably, outside of the Premier League, he'd go to. But he's got a young kid. Maybe he's 23. There's no other English players playing for that team, so we'll have to see. But I want it sorted before, literally the first week after I don't want it protracted until it's going to happen. 31st of August, he goes for £100 million, and we've got it just sitting in the bank, having to play Souček in his place, or So yeah, it's a shame because he's such a good player.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it will be that sort of transfer. And I think if he is going to go, we'll know about it before the last game of the season.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, but that's just alongside Declan Rice, Mark Noble, and as I said earlier, Mark might not be the greatest midfielder we've ever had, but
true.
What a captain! And he and Declan, I think, have got a special bond as well. And I'd love to have seen a Mark Noble in his prime alongside a Declan Rice, prime too, because I just think they would have complemented each other superbly well. And Nobes would also teach Declan how to take penalties, which is probably the one weak area.
And play golf. If you talk to Billy Horschel, Mark's a fucking good golfer, and
he does. I think Dec's learning on that one. So that's two in the midfield, and now the next two are interchangeable on the flanks a bit, right? Dimitri Payet.
Yeah.
Now a lot has been said about Dimitri Payet, but you show me a better free kick taker for West Ham. You show me a player that can just conjure up a magic moment, better than Dimitri Payet in his prime. And once again, the way it turned out in the end, very West Ham, isn't it? All the potential in the world, and then it didn't quite come off. And I think it was a real shame. I really do that he left, and the way he left, and the end that he had, because there was a time that Dimitri Payet was just an absolute god as far as me and my lad were concerned.
He was, and I think he was he was probably one of those players in recent history that we've bought in their prime. To be fair, either those 18 months where he was a Ballon d'Or nominee. When was the last time we had one of them, or we'll have one of them? So and again, what he brought to that last season at the Bowling, that if it wasn't for him, arguably we wouldn't have had that season, as good a season we had.
Correct. So from Dimitri Payet, who was with us for not long enough, to Trevor Brooking, who was with us all the way. Now, you can't pick a West Ham 11 without picking Trevor, who still has a sore head from Wembley 1980, and probably never scored with his head after that. I can't think of one.
Nope.
Who was just Trevor Brooking is a gentleman. Trevor Brooking was a flair player who deserved way more credit than he ever got outside of the East End of London, and who I once I look forward to going to work now and doing my job now, but back in my days at 5 Live, I did the odd football commentary, and one night Fulham West Ham, or West Ham Fulham at Upton Park, turned up for what should have been the greatest moment of my broadcasting career at that time, because I've got Trevor Brooking as a match day summariser.
Wow.
Now, we were 2-0 down at half time and playing the sort of football that only the foolhardy would think was going to change in the second half or get any better. I don't think you've ever heard two more miserable people do a football commentary in their entire life than Trevor and myself. And I remember a conversation I had with Trevor, who, as a player was just a genius and could do things that. Look, he scored a goal once. I think it was for England, wasn't it? He scored a goal once that actually the ball stayed in the stanchion.
Hungary.
No one else ever did that. Only Trevor Brooking could do that. But when he came back as our interim temporary manager and nearly kept us up that year, and the whole club just erupted because Trevor was at the helm. Well, I remember going to Ipswich the following season, and because he stayed on for a few games, and I did the interview for 5 Live, and I turned the tape recorder off, and Trevor said, "Have you got a minute?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're a West Ham fan. Who should be the next West Ham manager?" I said, "Well, you." Don't ask me stupid questions. Well, no, so I'm just really interested in what the fans are thinking. Who should it be? I said, "Well, you, Trevor. You're the only one that can get people motivated. It seems, because we've had far too long without enough motivation." He said, "Can't do it. I can't do it to my family. It's not fair on my family, because I live each match up to the kickoff, and then live the match during the match, and then the minute the match finishes, I go to the next match. And I just can't do that to my family." And I wasn't going to quibble with that whatsoever. But I think it's a shame he didn't stay on as manager.
And again, no, you're totally right. And a similar thing to sort of not comparing apples for apples, but obviously with Craig Dawson, same thing. It was like it's a family decision, and I think when it comes to family, anyone who's got family, who's got kids, he's like, yeah, fair enough. You know what I mean?
Now, Harry Redknapp signed this guy, is my front two. And in all honesty, only Harry Redknapp could have ever thought that signing this guy was a good idea. But what a great idea it was. Paolo Di Canio. Yeah. Now, what can you say about Paolo Di Canio that makes any sense whatsoever that hasn't already been said? But a more gifted, naturally flared genius of a footballer, I'm not quite sure I've seen. A more frustrating footballer, I'm not quite sure I've seen. A man who just did things on impulse, catching the ball when we needed to score against Everton. But you can understand why he did it. You just hated him for doing it at the time. And the man who scored the greatest goal, I've ever seen a West Ham player score, quite frankly. Yeah. That goal alone, has put Trevor Sinclair on the map. But it was a particularly brilliant assist. But it was. God, Di Canio.
Well, there's certain players. I've got this like Venn diagram in my head. Anytime we sign a player, and you've got one circle is Billy Bonds type players, and one circle is Trevor Brooking type players, and very rarely you get players in that intersect. And Di Canio was one of them in terms of just an absolute like nutter on the pitch, but just silky, and having that sort of both Bonds and Brooking type mentality makes you instantly of West Ham, and it's such a West Ham signing. He pushes over referee, and becomes one of the greatest players ever to play in the Premier League, probably.
He stand-up rows with his teammates on the pitch. Love it. And alongside Paolo, and once again, this was a 50-50 choice. And I'm sorry Tony Cottee made the subs bench, because Tony's a lovely guy and he's a great striker. But Frank McAvenny. Yeah. And you can't have, for a man born in 1970, who was 16 years old, the year that we finished third, you can't not have McAvenny in your all-time 11. And honestly, Frank McAvenny, from the moment he came on the pitch for his first match, and that mop of blonde hair, that cheeky little grin, and just the way he linked up with Cottee as well. It's the greatest striking partnership we've had, and I've just given Frankie the nod because there was something about Frankie that I absolutely loved. We all wanted to be Frank McAvenny when we were 16. Yeah.
It's just one. And again, it's like the same with Ray Stewart, and if you not from around these parts, but if he walks into any pub in Essex or anything, he wouldn't have to buy a beer, would he? You know what I mean? It's like
I think that was the problem. The fact that he did walk into a lot of pubs in Essex and he never did have to buy a beer.
God bless him.
I think that was half of Frank's problem, to be honest. But it was a genius footballer. And the legend of McAvenny, I think, gets better and better because there was no TV coverage that season. 86. So we can all just make up whatever stories we want about Frank McAvenny because the cameras weren't there to record it.
So true, so true. And he's still got plenty of them. And that's the thing. Even like as I said, even now, you see these legends like you talk about, like McAvenny, Cottee, and obviously I do a lot of stuff with the ex-player nights, and people will go and watch. The stories haven't changed. They're the same stories they've been saying the last 15, 20 years, but people still go and watch them. I don't assume in 20 years' time we're going to be sitting at the Queen's in Allchurch listening to Felipe Anderson and Sebastian Haller talking about their time at West Ham. But that sort of that era, people want to listen to Machiavelli talk about him and Cotti betting who can score the best goal.
Well, it was different times back then. It really was. And was the game better? I don't know. Was the game different? Yes, it was.
More fun.
Well, yeah. That's not a bad. 11.
I like the fact you've got new and old. I like the fact you've got Rice, you got Noble. I like the fact that you've got this you've got 3 generations. You've got the 85, 86 generation. You've got that sort of mid 90s. Then you've got sort of the early 2000s with Rio and Di Canio, and then Rice and Noble. You spanned your generations, nice, Crofty there.
And I'm hoping there will come a time when Lucas Paquetá will go in that as well, because I've great hopes for him. I think he's blossoming into a brilliant, absolutely brilliant midfielder for us. But I can't really think who amongst. Well, Aguerd, I think, if he stays,
possibly,
could become another Rio Ferdinand for us. But that's kind of about it from the current squad. They don't quite match up to the ones that we loved back in the day when we first started following West Ham, and our hopes didn't fade and die at the time, because West Ham got to the cup final in 1981 and they were going to do it every single year, and I was never going to get teased by my mates at school, and I was never going to live mercilessly by my colleagues at Sky and the BBC before. And what a lifetime of West Ham supporters.
If only.
But you know what? When we score, and me and my eldest, high five, embrace, cheer, shout at each other, and give it proper limbs in the Bobby Moore upper. It is worth every single bit of being a West Ham fan.
Totally.
And I could never. I think sometimes. Did you choose wisely? Yes, I did. Because it's character forming.
Character building, I was going to say that.
Proper character building. And yes, I did choose wisely. Should you just calm down a bit now that you're in your 50s? No, I still enjoy. I enjoy the singing. I enjoy the chanting. I love going to football. It's a release, isn't it, from your normal life? But being a West Ham fan, there's nothing normal about that at all.
There's nothing normal about it. No, there's nothing normal. Same as your day job. There's nothing normal in Formula One. It's it's so I mean you lot are going to effing Vegas at the end of the season. I mean that's
but Russ, remember this: it's vocation, not vacation, mate.
Yeah, I know.
You don't believe that at all, do you? You do not. You not for 1 second.
I know.
You believe that.
Because my old job, I used to do a lot of traveling around the States, and it's not as glamorous as people think. They go, oh, great, you're flying, but you just see a hotel room. You might do a bit of schmoozing, but
I'm never going to say that my life, that my job is appalling and awful, and we work in the worst conditions on the planet. But don't forget, Vegas. It's November. The race starts at 10 o'clock. It's going to be very, very cold. We're not going to finish until about 4 a.m. Each night. Most things will be shut by that stage. Who am I trying to kid? We're going to Vegas.
You're going to Vegas, baby. It's going to be awesome. And then particularly if there's something still to ride on it, the penultimate race in Vegas.
Well, we hope so. We might need Max Verstappen to be a little less Max Verstappen and a little more Thomas Souček for that to go that far down. And I hate saying that, but Thomas, you need a rest. You need to find your form again, and I need to find out why he's the first name on the team sheet every week, because I still can't
Ben
work it
Rama
out.
at the moment, isn't he? Ben Rama doesn't seem to be droppable at the moment by Moisey.
Benny, I can understand. Thomas has looked tired for quite some time, and has looked like he could do with a bit of revitalizing to rediscover the form that made us all love him in the first place, Yeah. And I'm not quite. I'd like to see more Flynn Downs in there to see just how good he is, and I think he is good, and I think he can do a really a proper job in that midfield. And we don't have to keep playing Thomas Souček, but David Moyes has a style, has a tried and tested formula, and Thomas Souček fits into his idea of how West Ham should be, and that kind of theory rather brings us to where we started off on this one.
Exactly. in a nice roundabout way. I've got one question from Dennis, who's a big West Ham fan and an F1. Got quite a few. Actually, I'm surprised. My the Arsenal DJ, he's a massive F1 fan, Pete, but he ain't got back to me yet. Anyway, question is, if West Ham were an F1 team, which one would they be? That includes defunct teams such as Arrows, Jordan, Force India.
Oh my lord! If West Ham were an F1 team, who would they be? That is.
Well, that was the best of the other questions. Was what was the worst capitulation of 2022-23? Was it Tottenham or Ferrari? So I've just gone for this one instead. I thought this one's easier.
Yeah. No. To be fair, Ferrari are trying to do a good impression of Spurs at the moment. I'm going to go, and I've had to think about this one, and there is no right or wrong answer. I'm going to go for Tyrrell.
Okay.
I think West Ham are a Tyrrell. Bags of potential. Looking for the right investor. Glory days from time to time, associated with some utter greats in the world of Formula One. Sir Jackie Stewart, for instance, Francois Sever, for instance, Martin Brundle, for instance. But they're just not ever going to be consistent winners, and eventually the dreams are going to fade and die,
just like the song.
But that doesn't stop you hoping. I mean, look, now I'm thinking about it. Tyrrell did win championships, of course, in the 70s, but we've won a second division title. That's fine.
We've won a second
division.
We've
won the Intertoto Cup, and we're going to win the European Conference.
Exactly.
But it's a really hard question. Tyrrell, I think, would be the one, because the overriding part about it is everybody loves Tyrrell.
Yeah,
and pretty much everyone loves West Ham as well. Maybe because they don't see us as a threat, but West Ham have a lot of admirers. Once upon a time, they were everyone's second favourite football team. I subscribe to that, because you shouldn't ever have a second favourite football team. It's like a half and half scarf. It shouldn't happen. But I do think.
What do they do with all the half and half scarf afterwards? Because you walk out the ground and they go 5. I'm thinking they can't give them a what? It can't. What do they do with them? I don't know.
Well, I think they either recycle them or they'll sell them again next year.
Hopefully
this is my message to David Moyes. You need to stay up, right? Because all those people selling half and half scarves, they got a lot of unsold stock. All going to go to waste if we get relegated. So come on, baby. Pull your finger out.
And that concludes. Pull your finger out, David Moyes. Crofty, man.
Do it for the half and half scarf, man, David. Come on.
If no one else, do it for the half and half. Not for a new contract. Do it for them. David, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Obviously, busy week for you. Busy day. You've got Friday. You got the quali on Friday. Then you got the sprint quali. Then the sprint on Saturday. Then the game. Then the race on Sunday. Busy day for you. Busy weekend, my friend.
Yeah, well, the brand new format as well. So
I'm looking forward to that.
It's 10 to 7 here in Baku. I'm going to leave you, and I'm going to start leafing once again through the sporting regs, because it's all changed. And we've only had about 2 days' notice on this one. So, I've got a fair bit of work to do tonight, but it has been an absolute pleasure, Russ, to talk to you.
Thank you, Crofty,
it's nice to take a break, talk about West Ham, which is my passion, but not my work, which is great.
It's a good man, and obviously, hopefully, probably not this season, but next season we'll see you back after all the chaos of this week, of this next few weeks.
I've had my email. Renew your season ticket.
8%. It's 8% or 4%, depends if you're top band or bottom band in it, or something like that.
I'm somewhere in the middle on that one. Look, I don't quite think you can justify price increases based on what we have seen this year, but inflation is inflation. And all I would say on that one, is that it's 115 quid for my two boys to come. Now, one of the things about going to the Olympic Stadium was allowing families to come, and making it more affordable, and that is brilliant value. Without the ticket exchange, I'd probably struggle to justify the season ticket, because obviously I can't go to every match. But at least with the ticket exchange, if I can't go, somebody can. I don't think it's that expensive to go and buy your season tickets for West Ham, not compared to a lot of other things as well. But it'd be nice to get value for money, occasionally on that one. So, but no, we do. Like, I will be renewing. I'll be there as much as I possibly can. It's it's the perfect way to spend what is turning into a Sunday afternoon, because we don't play at home on a Saturday anymore.
I know.
Because we're on a European tour, you see,
exactly,
Russ.
I can't remember. I can't remember what a Sunday dinner is. I can't remember. It's not like I miss them, to be honest.
You look like you haven't forgot. Don't worry about that one.
All right, you go and do your regulations, and I'm gonna kick you out, and I'll stay. See you soon, mate.
I've done it now. Take care.
Take care, man. Jeez.
Go on, you Irons.
Go you Irons. Go you Irons. And that was David Croft. God bless him. David Crofty, as I said, Azerbaijan. This will go out during this weekend. So yeah, so you've got Azerbaijan Grand Prix and all that type of stuff. So the new round here, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a bloody good subscribe. Thank you, Dennis, for your questions. And until next time, my friends, take care. Bye-bye.